Welcome to LSC. It's Sportstime. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Today I have with me Steve Whitley, who is the commissioner of the TBOA, and that is
Tidewater Basketball Officials Association.
And you're the kind of guy that gets out and make a call and half the people don't like you.
50% of them like you and 50% of them don't like you.
Tim and I did a lot of ball games for years, and being an umpire and being an official, well, that's got to be a job that you got to have thick skin.
Sometimes it gets a little trying.
I'm sure it does. But let's go back, because you didn't grow up on the peninsula, but you grew up close. You're in the Tidewater area. You grew up over in Smithfield.
In Smithfield. I've lived there my whole life.
Talk a little bit about growing up there, because you had a different system over there in the recreation department than what they have here in Hampton. Talk a little bit about playing ball before you got to the high school level.
Well, we had what we call a Isle of Wight County Parks and Recreation League that we started in when we were kids.
Right.
And we played in that up until we probably got into the 8th grade. And then from the 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, we played junior varsity and then moved on up to the varsity if you were fortunate, if you were good
right.
enough. Yeah.
But now when you were a youngster, you played more than just basketball and football, baseball?
Yeah, I played all three sports. I played football, basketball, and baseball.
Now, when you went on to high school, same thing?
Yes.
All right, now, what was your position in football?
In football, I played tailback and cornerback in high school.
Okay. Basketball?
Played forward.
Now, you're not a big guy.
No, I'm not a big guy, but we had a lot of small guys on our high school team.
So you ended up as power forward?
Yeah, kind of power forward. Yeah, that's a good statement.
And in baseball?
I played shortstop.
Played shortstop, and then that, to me, is one of the toughest positions, because you got to make the longest throw usually from that position. So now, growing up, and I'm assuming you had some good coaches. Can you remember some of them?
Well, my dad was my coach in baseball. He
Right.
He actually got drafted by the San Francisco Giants back in the day, as we call it. But
Right.
he got drafted and had to go to Korean War and never got a chance to play when he got back. And so he coached all of our little league teams all the way up till I played in high school.
Right. So how about the other sports?
In football, I got a family friend that's been a lifelong friend. His name is L.D. Joyner, and he lives in Smithfield, and he was always coached football from the time I was like 8 years old all the way up till I got into high school. And he still follows all of us guys today that are still around in town, and we all talk with him, from time to time, and enjoy his company.
But it's almost like it's a small town setting. It's not like Hampton, which is big, and you got 4 high schools and all that.
Right. It's two schools in the county, but only one in Smithfield, and then of course Isle of Wight Academy sprung up later on in the, I guess, late 60s.
Right. Now, in high school, did you still play all 3 sports all through high school?
Yes, sir.
All right. Graduated and went to the apprentice school.
Yep.
Now, we're talking a little different, because you're going to school, you're playing sports, and you're working.
That's correct.
So, talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, you got to be a good time manager, because when we went to the apprentice school, it was like we were still going to school. It was like, taking college classes, kind of. So we worked all day, 8 hours a day, and then we practiced 2 hours a day, and then you have to go home and do homework, and,
So now the 8 hours, part of that was in school?
Part of it was in school, yes.
And then part of it was actually on the job working?
On the job training, yes.
Okay, so you're one of the few people that be able to go to school and get paid for it.
Exactly. That was better than paying to go to college. Yes, sir.
But now, when you're over there playing sports, you didn't play all 3.
No, I played only 2 sports at the apprentice school. I played football for 4 years, and I played baseball two years at the apprentice school.
Okay. Now, at the baseball level, did you strictly offense or defense, or did you play both ways like you did in high school?
In football, I only played on defense. In the apprentice school, I played middle linebacker.
Okay. Who was the coaching over when you were there? Can you remember?
The first 2 years was Gene Yearwood, and the second 2 years I played was Norm Snead.
Wow. Now you're talking about a guy with the NFL. How was that working, playing under Norm?
Norm was a character, but he was amazing, because, we always knew him when we were kids that he played in the NFL, and he came out in practice and he had this tire he had tied onto the goalpost, and he could stand back 25, 30 yards, and it was amazing. He could throw that ball still at his age then right through that tire.
Right through the tire.
Right through it.
Wow.
And it just tells you the accuracy of those guys and the skill that they have to play at that level.
Well, that had to be quite an experience, just being around him, let alone having to be your coach.
He had some good stories.
I'm sure he did. Now, you've been at the shipyard quite a while.
37 years.
37 years. So Evidently, you must like it over there.
It pays the bills, and
Right.
it's been good to me and my family.
Right.
It's a good place to work, good people.
Right. Did you ever think that you might coach some over there? Was that ever entered your mind?
At the apprentice school?
Yeah.
Well, no, not really. Not really. I continued on playing sports, slow pitch softball. I played
Right.
that for many, many years and was traveling around the country on weekends and playing 4 nights a week in the local rec league, so not really a lot of time to coach.
Right.
Plus, one of my teammates coaches the baseball team, and he still does. I played with Brian Cave, and he's currently still the
Yeah,
baseball
well,
coach.
you know Brian. I coached Brian. I put him back in junior high school. He played basketball for me, and I always tell people he jumped about that high. But Brian is a good guy, and so you develop a pretty good relationship with him over there at the apprentice school. But now you get into officiating. What got you into officiating? Because this is not something you just jump into. I mean, you had to think about it, okay?
Really don't know. We were sitting at the shipyard one day. The gentleman I told you that coached the football, L.D. Joyner, him and I, his daughter was playing at Isle of Wight Academy and about to graduate, and we said, well, what are we going to do now? What are we really going to do? And so we went to the meeting in Petersburg one night, paid our dues, took the test, and next thing you know, we're a basketball official. And I started that in 1978 with the Petersburg basketball officials.
Oh, but you're over on that side. You're over on
It was on that side, and the reason we elected to go with that board is because they were refereeing the old Peanut District games.
Okay.
With Smithfield, Suffolk, Forest Glen, John F. Kennedy, Southampton, Franklin,
Right.
Smithfield. They were on that side, so that's the reason we elected to start
Well,
out.
and were you still living over there then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that was close to home for you.
No,
to
it
do
was
that.
home, yes.
But now, getting your credentials back then, did you go to any camps right away, or just what you learned you learned on the court?
Learned on the court. Actually, back then I wasn't going to camps. Back then, at the time, there was a lot of local guys that were big in college basketball officiating. Larry Rose, he was on that high school board that I first joined.
Right.
And he was the one that actually started talking us younger guys into going to camps. And I'd probably refereed high school basketball 10 years before I ever went to my first camp.
How did you learn the positioning of the officials on the court? Yeah, I mean, just
took the book, read the manual, and little on-court instruction. Preseason scrimmages from the veteran guys showing you
Right.
where to be and where to go. And
did you work with the same guy all the time, or was it a different guy?
no, it was different guys, and it was
Okay.
totally up to the commissioner. You'd draw different guys just about every game.
Because I would think that you could develop a system with the one guy if you were with him all the time.
It is better to do that, but the
Yeah.
coaches don't want to see the same two guys together all the time.
Yeah, I know, because I used to be a coach. I understand that too. And then when you was over there, you did the ODAC, and what else?
Later on in my career, I went to the camps, and my goal was to get into the Colonial because, Old Dominion, William Murray, Richmond, James
Right.
Madison, they were all close. Never made it for whatever reason, So I just worked in the Division III basketball in the ODAC conference, it was the old Dixie conference at the time,
Right.
and that's known as the USA South. And I'm
Okay.
currently still refereeing in those two conferences.
Oh, you still doing that?
Yes.
Okay. Does being a commissioner, does that hinder you or frees you up?
No, because most of my college games are on Saturdays, and we don't have very many high school games around here on
Okay.
Saturdays, so it really doesn't conflict.
So
with that.
no conflict at all there. Okay. Now, in 1984, you came over
On
to the peninsula
yes.
side. Don Ellis, was he big in the officials association? And it was Board 125 when I was coaching.
Yeah, Peninsula Board 125. That was the organization I came over to in 1984. And it's funny you mentioned Don Ellis's name. Don is actually the one that taught me to come over here to this side. I met him through softball. He used to furnish our umpires over to the Isle of Wight County softball league.
Okay.
And I was running the league at the time. And I met Don then, and he said, well, you need to come on over and start refereeing with us. And at the time, Nelson, his brother, had just had been the commissioner for like 2 years. And I came over in 1984 and been here ever since.
Right. Well, and so Don, and I was kind of misspoke when I made Don, but I was going to bring him up anyway. But Nelson was he commissioner when you first came over?
Yes, yeah, Nelson was commissioner.
Before I forget it, is there one game that stands out of all the games that you've done that you said, man, I'm glad I was part of that game?
I had the privilege of refereeing a AAA state championship game, and back then they were still playing at Liberty University. And Cave Spring was playing, and J.J. Riddick, we all know him, who played at Duke and was now in the NBA. He hit 13 three-pointers in that game.
Wow.
And that was quite an experience to referee somebody of that caliber at that level.
Right. Now, when you first came on, though, back in the day, back in '78 and even over in '84, they were still just doing two-man basketball officiating. So the dynamics changed when you had a three-man crew. Because I can remember that they would do three-man when they got to tournaments. But prior to the regular season, they did two-man crews. And then eventually it became three-man all the time, which I said, if you're going to do it one day, do it all the time. Talk a little bit about some of the dynamics that changed from two to three-man.
Well, the court coverage areas are much different. Your three-point shot coverage, everything is really different. But your areas of coverage are much smaller. And so hopefully the three-man system is better for the game, and we can catch more of those little sneaky moves, that we had gray areas on court coverage in the two-man crew.
And you also said three-man really extends the life of the official.
It does. It's much easier, less, I ain't gonna say not necessarily less running, but hard running, let's say, because like I said, you have a shorter distance to go to get to your next spot. And it's much easier on the body. It keeps veteran officials around much longer than if we'd be all working still two-man.
Did you ever get a chance to work with Jess Kersey, or had he already moved on before you came over?
Actually, I worked a scrimmage game at Christopher Newport one year when the NBA officials were on strike. And that was an experience because the coach from Hampton-Sydney didn't know who Jess Kersey was.
Whoa!
And Jess Kersey doesn't have a 5-second closely guarded count in the NBA, and that guy was getting on him. And I was laughing, and Jess asked me during the time, what is this guy talking about, a 5-second closely guarded count? So I thought that was kind of fun.
Right. So you got a chance to work with him. That was kind of neat. I was fortunate enough to get him in here. Now, doing the games, you was talking about with the guy that's under the basket, he ends up as the top official when the ball goes the other end, just on the other side of the half-court line.
Correct.
Right. Where are the other people? The guy that was up in front, he underneath the basket, explain to me what happens.
Well, there's three officials. You have a lead official who's on the baseline.
Okay.
You have a trail official who's on the same side of the court as the lead is. And then you have a center official who's around the free throw line extended. Okay? Now, depending on where the ball is, there could cause officials movement called rotation. When the ball goes to what we call the center official side and drops below the free throw line extended, then the lead official crosses over to his side of the court. At that time, that C kicks out and now becomes the trail. My trail slides down and becomes the C on the other side.
Okay, so that's confusing, but what you're doing is you're trying to keep the same areas under observation.
Right, you're trying to balance the court, and depending on where the ball is, have the same court coverage areas and get the best view of the plays that's happening.
Now, does the positions change because of tie-ups or foul shots or something, that the guy who was now middle now becomes the trail official? Does this happen?
Yes, live ball movement is called rotations. Dead ball after fouls are called switches. And we do switch positions on the calling official in high school. If you are shooting free throws, stay on the table side, which in the NCAA used to be like that. The high school went to it. Then the NCAA said, no, we don't like it. So now the calling official goes back away from the table again.
Okay. All these different positions you have to be on, kind of confusing, but if you watch the flow, you really don't pay attention. If you're watching a ball game, you're not really worried about, because there always seems to be an official where he's supposed to be.
Right.
And it just, you guys flow. Did it take you some time to work that, coming from a two-man rotation?
Well, when we first started three-man, everybody moved when there was a foul call. It was like a Chinese fire drill. Nobody knew where they were going. Then they got to where every time there was a foul, only two guys switched, which made it much easier.
Right.
And used to, you would never switch. You would just stay two guys on one side of the court, and the C would stay where he was at. Then they went to what they call this flex, this rotation, and that's when we started moving from side to side. Right. The NBA mirrors the ball. The ball's
Right.
on the other side of the court, then you see the guy running across the end line.
Yeah, well, the NBA it's a different animal.
It's
anyway.
a different animal altogether.
Talk a little bit about what changes you've seen, because you played and then officiated, and you've seen the athletes get better. You've seen changes. You've seen the 5-second call where it's closely guarded, no more jump ball at the beginning of each quarter, no more possession changes, the foul shots after 7, the 1-on-1 after all that. What are the biggest things that you saw in your tenure as an official that changed the biggest changes in basketball?
Wow, that's tough.
Yeah, because I always thought 3-point.
I was getting ready to say the 3-point shot, because when I played in high school, we didn't have a 3-point shot.
We didn't either. But that, do you think that made the defense play a little different now than what they used to?
It gives the little guy a better chance, because if you got a lot of 3-point shooters and you don't have to pound the ball down inside all the time to score, this definitely balances the game out.
Yeah. Well, if you don't have a big man,
well, that's true.
Yeah, so why do you want to pound it underneath, right? So we're going to kind of wrap this thing up, but this has been very interesting. But you had a chance to go over to Hampton High School. Karen Holly asked you to come in and talk to 2 advanced PE classes about becoming an official. And I want you to tell me what you told those classes.
Well, we told the kids, we're looking for new, younger officials all the time. And when Karen asked us to come in and speak to us, we said, wow, this is a great opportunity to reach some people. What we're looking to do is get new people come in that has played the game. High school kids that played in the Peninsula and Bay Rivers District that still live in this area,
right,
or went to college and come back and now work in this area. Because we got a lot of old bodies out there running up down the court. And to get new people in, it's just hard. It's like they don't want to make the commitment. It takes time and effort to do it. And the things we told the class is, we just don't all of a sudden put a shirt on one night and go out and referee. There are things you have to do. You have to join a local association. So whether it be TBOA or the Norfolk side, the Hampton Roads basketball officials, Richmond, PB 125, and it costs you money. There is an initial investment.
Right.
You got to buy shirts, whistles, pants, socks, shoes, a jacket, board jacket. You have to attend meetings, board association meetings.
Right.
We have 6 minimum required by the Virginia High School League. We have a VHSL clinic that's online that we have to take, and they know whether you took it or not. You can't cheat.
Right.
We have a VHSL rules test that we have to take every year. Used to be 100 questions. This year they cut it back to 50.
Okay.
And they were all true and false, multiple choice type questions.
Right.
And
would they give you situations?
Yes, and most of them are right directly out of the rule book. And it's an open book test. And it used to not be open book. They went open book thinking it was going to get people to better chance if you could say, okay, you can use the book to take it, to actually get in and dig into it and read up on some of these rules.
Well, and also I think that if you look at the rule and you say, I'm not too sure, and you look it up, it reinforces that rule in your mind too, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Right. So you got your initial investment, you got to join an association, you got to buy the equipment, you got to do all that. And then during the year you take exams, or at the beginning of the year, how does that work?
It's preseason. The exam runs about a 4-week period from like mid-October to first mid-November. And if you don't take it in a certain time period now, the Virginia High School League charges you. And each week you wait, it could get up to $25, $50, $75, up to $100. And then eventually you reach a point of no return, which if you don't take the test, you can't work JV or varsity basketball. But we don't have that problem because we police our officials and make sure that everybody takes it. And we are in constant contact with the Virginia High School League. They send us the results and who hasn't taken the clinic or the test. And then based on what score you get on the test, they put you in a category whether you're certified, registered, or approved based on what test score you get and whether you've taken the clinic.
Well, you've opened my eyes.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for tuning in to LSC and Sports Time. I want to thank my special guest, Steve Whitley. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Until next time.